Hello, everybody. Welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider. Super glad to have you all here. First things first, though, since everyone is back in the chat, let's get this piece of housekeeping done. And
recording in progress.
There we go. The thing that everyone came. That's it for the show tonight. Thank you, everybody. No.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we know that everyone wants that. Pausing quickly to get the social out right now. So if you are joining us for the first time, we know that unlike later in the season, that this actually may be the time where we have new people joining us. And if that is you, then we're super excited for you to be here. We come to you live pretty much every Monday, unless there's some sort of weird things that happen with the round, to talk about previews of players for the official MLS Fantasy game. Like and subscribe us here if you listen to us on YouTube right now. Just hit the notification button. Go over to Twitter X, go over to Blue Sky, wherever you are at and consuming media, and I just posted the links to the live stream. Please do like and share that as well. It helps so much with our interactions. It helps so much just spreading the fantasy community because unlike years in the past, it is even more important to get information out since we don't have that support officially from MLS anymore. They've definitely scaled back a lot, which we'll touch on early in the show in just a second as soon as we get started. So heading over here to chat. What's going on, Eric? Black and Red, you made it. Hope that paper's going well. Our glass. Nice to see you all here with us. Okay, there we go. Shandy. Good thing Megan's here. All right, lots of people here tuning in. So we're excited. All right, well, we are recording. How's my volume? We'll do that. I don't see Gene in here to tell me how the volume's doing, but Eric's pretty good as well with letting me know how these things go. And it looks okay from, I got the microphone in front of me. It's not suspended anymore. It's right here. So paper was submitted. Volume good. Excellent. Well, then let's get this thing started. Hello and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of round 1 of the 2025 MLS Fantasy season. This episode is brought to you by Leo Messi's new hit single, Sporting Kansas City, It's Cold Outside. No, sorry. Actually, brought to you by the amazing MLS Fantasy Insider Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to keep this project going. Head on over to patreon.com/MLSFI right now because I've updated the tiers to show what you get for your support, including where you can get in line for the open slots for our 2025 MLS Fantasy Boss Pro Rel League. So head over there right now, patreon.com/MLSFI. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partner in fantasy, Ashley Savage. We'd also like to welcome our very special guest, Jeff Baklund, a.k.a. the Priest from the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord, who took number 1 as the overall 2024 MLS Fantasy Champion last year. How are you all doing?
Great. It's nice to be back.
It is.
Oh yeah, it's officially back. I know not as early as a lot of us would have wanted. Now Jeff and I were talking right before the show, and I was like, "Yeah, it started a week ago." He's like, "Man, it was 3 days." No. I think it's safe to say that all three of us were definitely hoping for an earlier start. Is that true?
A little bit,
but there's no changes. There's no changes to the scoring aspect, sadly.
That's true. And that is one thing we sort of suspected last week when we were kind of previewing when the launch page, or at least the landing page, went live, is everything seemed like it was going to be the same. We were teased that maybe we'd get some more stats to do filtering. Nope, none of that's changed. So this is a copy-paste of the game from last year. There must have been a typo because it said 3 qualifying rounds for Champions League. It's 4. It's all in the rules. So this is the same game again. That's not bad. I mean, some people may be like, "Oh, I wish there was more. I wish the aerial duels were back. I wish some things were in here." There have been years in the past where there were huge, just big swings between seasons, and that was equally as annoying. So it's the same game. We know it. We're back in it, and so very happy to be here. A couple of quick announcements before we get into our interview with Jeff. I mentioned at the intro to the show, the Pro Rel MLS Fantasy Boss 2025 League. Emails have gone out for those invites, the Champions League, the Veterans League, and the Homegrown League. What I'm hearing, check your spam folder. to see if you're expecting one of those invites. Check your spam folder. They have gone out. I'm the commissioner for the Champions League. Ashley is the commissioner for the Veterans League, and Ashley's hubby Spencer is the commissioner for our homegrown league. And so check those out. We do want you do what?
I was joking. I said, "Who's that?"
Oh yeah, who? Yeah, he got relegated, so he went there.
Ouch.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. Ashley got promoted. They just swapped. We did a savage swap, and so
yeah, somehow he was always in a higher league than me, so we finally just rectified things.
we got it done. But please do respond to those emails. There is a response date in the email where we need that response and your team names. We can just track everything appropriately. Otherwise, we're going to start just moving on those slots to other people. So I tried to contact people over the off season, made a couple of posts on Twitter, posts on Discord. So that made lots of attempts to try to get in touch with people. I need your information, and that's what this is trying to be. So the good news is, if you want to get in to the Pro Rel League, that is where Patreon comes in. The way that we've done this for the past couple of years since the league has started is any open spots, any expansions that we have, any open spots that come up, the priority always goes to the fantastic supporters of the MLS Fantasy Insider Patreon project, because you guys just have been with us so long, and you do so much and contribute in ways that actually help us pay our fees and keep things going, that it's just another way for us to show that appreciation and give you that access. The tiers have been updated, so head over there, patreon.com/MLSFI, and check it out. But the way it basically goes is our highest tier, our partners tier, you guys get first shot at open spots. You also get invites to the MLS Fantasy Insider Hosts Invitational, but you'll get a personal email with the link to the league to be able to join. After that, our second tier, our Flair ambassadors, you guys get the second shot. There'll be a private post made on Patreon that only your tier can access, and you can go in there, click on that link. When these links get posted, it's first come, first serve for the spots. So, but you'll have the first shot when that's posted. After that, we go to our middle tier, our inside access tier. You get the third shot at, again, a private post just for your tier to be able to click on the link and join. There'll be instructions with what you need to do after that. And then after that third shot, if any spots are still open, which I'm guessing probably not, but if any spots are still open, there'll be a general post made to all of our patrons in the tiers that are displayed for you to be able to join in, just free for all right there. So it's patrons first is how that works. I get messages on Discord, messages on Twitter. I really appreciate it. It's updated on MLSFantasyBoss.com in the Pro Rel section with this information, but that is how we get in. So patreon.com/MLSFI. And it's going to be good. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of people in here. We have like 200 people, 100-ish plus people that play in this league. So it's fantastic. But pause a second. I've got to go run up to help with Toddler right now. So Ashley, if you want to kick off the interview with Jeff.
I would love to. Everybody loves a Sounders sandwich, so I'm really excited to have you here, and also, to have had a Sounders player OR1 last year was pretty great. When did you realize that you maybe were about to win or place OR1 last year? At what point did you feel like, one, you kind of knew it, or two, you thought you had it?
Good question. It's funny. I was sweating decision day because I made a very last minute, like final 2 minutes before games locked decision to pull Suarez out of my lineup.
Hey.
I wasn't thinking about who they were playing. So I think I switched like Suarez start with, can't even remember who the mid was at this point, to my bench. And then put Lucho Acosta on the bench and started Kelvin Yeboah. It was like a solid 20 to 25 point, like negative swing. And seeing everybody that had Suarez starting was terrifying. And then you just watch his score climb and climb and climb. And I'm watching Wojo get point after point after point closer. Had just enough of a lead though to hold him off. I think watching the night games, the Wojo and I were tied all the way until the final 2 minutes. And the lone score difference that happened was Rusnak picked up a yellow card for basically just yelling at the ref in like the
Correct.
90 plus mark. And
Yep.
that was the like deciding point. Otherwise we were tied.
Yeah. I will be honest with you. I was actually messaging with Wojo during that game because I was at the game with my husband. And as soon as that yellow card happened, he messaged me and said, I lost it. And I was like, there's no way that can't be true. And to hear to hear it come from you,
The
obviously,
the
it
only
was.
the only difference between our rosters, I think, in the West Coast games was I had Evander and he had Rusnak.
Yeah,
That was a lone
rough.
difference because everybody was pretty set on chalk the last few weeks of the year
Yeah,
last year.
yeah, absolutely. So it really came down to the wire. Thank you. I just got a wine delivery. Cheers.
Dang, lucky.
Um, I know. I have a great spouse. What is this? This is a broader question, but what is your approach? You just talked about last minute tinkering and things like that, but what is your
uh,
approach to setting a fantasy team? How do you go about it each week?
yeah, it's probably different than most. I typically don't even let me back up. I'll clear my roster from the week prior, and the first thing I do with all 15 is set it for players from the final game so I don't accidentally lock somebody from the first
Hot
game for
tip.
the next week. Because that used to happen more often than I would hope it would.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I'm ready to, I don't typically start building my team out until the first lineups drop on
Okay.
either Wednesday or Saturday. And then from there, I just start looking at what players would look enticing. And if they are they a bench? Are they a start? Try to make sure you really leverage the auto ruse to the max
Yeah.
capacity
Yeah.
as the game allows. And then it just kind of blends out from there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I
Yeah.
miss on players that are higher picked. I mean, the current ownership piece kind of falls by the wayside by like week 3 or 4 of the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
But I tend to build my roster out late just because
Nice.
I was telling Reed
I
earlier,
envy that. I don't
I don't
have
like
that option.
I don't like overthinking it if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. I'd like you to say that louder for the people in the back. I feel like we talk about that a lot, right? Just the overthinking aspect. Do you ever mirror what I like to do, which is even before I now there's sometimes I'll just throw a player like Messi or someone in right away when I'm resetting, but do you
sure.
like to look at the schedule? That's something I always like to do.
Yeah,
I tend to glance at the games and
sure.
then move to the do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I mean, glance at schedule to see like what offensive players are likely going to
Mhm.
be a better pick versus like what offenses are
Sure.
slumping. Therefore, are you
Yeah.
kind of checking out like goalies and defenders?
Yep.
Um, yeah,
What defenses are at home? Do I like that home matchup?
paying. I will just call out like the weather warnings, especially as we
Hmm.
get towards the back half of the year.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think it's Asher that does weather, so I'll just call him out now. Or
Yes.
Storminator, I think is his name currently in
Storminator. Yeah.
the Discord. Just I would give him a shout out because the weather warnings are massive.
I mean, they've come into play big time last season and
They
previous seasons as well.
I I felt like I avoided any of the major weather catastrophes by just
Hmm.
not picking guys where there's a high chance that they're gonna get, you
Yeah.
know, lightninged out. A couple
Yep.
years ago that was definitely an issue because
Oh
I
yeah.
would try to just shrug it off, and the next thing you know, your guy's locked and there's no game.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. What what is your approach? We talk about this every season, and I think generally Reed and I have a we'll pick the best players. However, and I know we'll get into this in player picks because you and I overlapped a lot. So I feel like I maybe already know the answer to this question, but how do you approach price rising? Does that matter to you? Does your bank value matter these first couple weeks? Do you try to have no scrubs? Do you try to only have a keeper scrub? What's your
I
strategy when it comes to that price rise?
I definitely would recommend for the first 4 or 5 weeks,
Mhm.
avoid doing scrubs if at all possible. Like set your
Same.
$4 to $5 guys on the bench. Try to always have a set starting 11. You can put one scrub in case one of
Hmm.
your, someone in your on your bench pops, but otherwise really try to push the price rise as quick as possible, even if it means you might be sacrificing a couple points here or there. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I would, for instance, by like week 2 or 3, I would venture to pick a $5 guy where I'm assuming he's at best going to score like, I don't know, a 5, maybe a 6, versus use the additional money to again get somebody who might only score a 5 or a 6, but they cost more. So they're not going to get the same value out of
Yep.
budget. I would say by probably week 6 or 7 last year, I never had to look at budget. I could just pick the
Yeah.
most
Same.
expensive guys through the entire game, and then that was
Yeah.
that. Reid was saying earlier that you had a pretty high budget last year. Do you recall what it was?
Gosh, I can't remember how I ended. It was not quite as high as someone else I'd seen, but
I dug
yes,
through
I had
the
an obnoxious budget. But it wasn't because I was
at that
trying. I
point
just
you're
kind of
yeah, like after
yeah,
the
I
first
was
4 or 5
doing what
weeks, you just let it
yes,
ride
but I was doing what you said where I try to never have a scrub if I can help
if
it the first
possible.
5 weeks. Yeah, if it's possible with rotated keepers or injuries to a back line. Defense is usually the best place to find them, but like you said, I'll take a 6.0, 5.5 mid this week and throw them on my bench to avoid having to have a scrub. And I honestly contribute that. I think I had an obnoxious budget because I peaked early last year, which is it's usually the opposite. I like slide into top 50, but last year I think I was like 12 after week 1 or something. So it was just more of like my players hit, right? Yeah, Reid would get pretty annoyed. He kept saying the word budget like at the midway point, and I was like, who cares? And so
The people
I'd
joining
have
the
to
game midway through the year.
I'd have
I
to
will
look, but yeah, Tyler and I were often Ranch Tanner and I were often collaborating on whose budget was bigger, no pun intended.
sure.
Yeah.
I finished at 2. I had to go back in the Discord and look. I finished at 211.2 last year.
Yeah, I'd have to look. I don't know if I still have
Yeah,
it.
you stopped telling us your budget in the rundown, so I looked real quick and it's not there.
Yeah, I definitely stopped telling you because you got mad at me.
I did no such thing.
Okay. How do you go about stats? What resources do you, besides us, obviously, habitual listener, I'm sure, but what resources and stats do you, if any, do you like to utilize each week?
Resources and stats. I mean, it really just take 10 minutes, scan through on, I don't know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever is comfortable. Take 10 minutes and just
Yeah,
scan through games and just go look and be like, who looks like an anomaly in
sure.
terms of where their score was at. Obviously, if somebody scores like 15 plus, unless it's
Yeah,
messy, that's probably not going to be the standard for them,
right.
right? But
Yeah,
try to look for the guy that's got a 7 or an 8. And if you know a clean sheet's busted and all of a sudden you see a defender higher, why? Did he pick up a bunch of bonus points somewhere? Did he score? Was it an assist? Using the last 3-week average is
yeah,
sometimes helpful because you can filter by position and see if there's any names that kind of seem out of place. You mentioned it before. Pay attention to schedule. Like look at the upcoming schedule to see is there anybody where the dots start to align. Um, in the toolbox in the Discord, I'm going to keep using the Discord as a reference. Paying attention to
absolutely.
like injuries or international duty, potentially any yellow card accumulations or red cards, weather issues. There's a variety of things that you can look at that really shouldn't take more than like, I don't know, 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Doesn't have to be like a massive deep dive, but just something I would say if there's anything I do pre team building is the midweek point. Pay attention to like any card accumulations, any knocks people might have picked up.
sure.
It usually gets called out with any players that are more frequently picked just in the Discord in general.
hmm
Um, but yeah, I would say those are like the main things I'm usually looking at in terms of resources.
Okay. To wrap up the, you know, OR1 reigning OR1 pitch, what advice do you have for anybody who either is just playing this year or playing for the first time this year?
First thing I put in the notes, just have fun. Like
Yeah.
for me, the biggest part is it's fun to talk smack with other people that are doing the same thing,
And I hope you are. I hope
whether
you
you're
did,
good
and
at
I
it or
hope
you're
you
not.
are. Yeah.
I will say I tried to stay more reserved so I didn't have constant quotes come flying back down the stretch. I think I overtook the overall one spot like 9 or 10 weeks before the season ended. I want to say it was like game week 22 or 23.
Yeah.
And then from there the league kind of fluctuated. So I definitely was trying to take more of the quiet and reserved approach versus
Sure.
flaunt it, because the next thing you know, you make a couple bad picks and then everybody piles on you. Doesn't feel great.
No. Well, awesome. Like I said, I'm so glad that we were able to have you on week 1 as the reigning champ. I know heavy is the crown. So I appreciate you hopping on, to chat with us, especially for someone, we get this a lot. We try to make a very educated guess of a team. I think Reid and I both try to always say, don't hold us to this. Like if you're playing us in a head-to-head or something and our team's different, we're not here like spouting incorrect teams. It's just what on Monday we think makes the most sense, and sometimes it changes. But I always appreciate when people come on like you who don't glance at it for 4 more days and we make you do it on a Monday. So I appreciate it very much.
I mean, because part of the problem is like if you really invest time into it to set your team on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then comes, either Wednesday if there's a double game week, or Saturdays. And then all of a sudden you see 2 or 3 of your guys that you already had set are out. And maybe those are your budget players. Now you're having to panic to find other budget players or figure out where you're going to move people around. And it throws you off. I prefer to just look at a lineup and be like, that lineup looks absolutely rotated. They look terrible. I'm going to dive in against them.
See, I love that. That's more of a gut strategy, which is something that I don't let drive me, but I really try to heavily look at less of the build up computer data. I always call it computer data, and people like, Christian and Reid kind of smile and laugh at me, but less of that data and more of a, like you said,
just a gut check.
That person's out of position. Yes, exactly. Just a gut check. Exactly. So I love that.
Yeah, and that's why we also talk about, again, with the Discord, where we have the channel where the rosters and the lineups get posted and just all aggregated right there. I mean, it's super important to see that. We know that sometimes it's hard. We do have players from other areas of the world, not in the United States, that make that, and Canada make that more difficult, but we try.
Sometimes you go on a European trip in the summer and someone has to run your team for you because the time zones are too hard.
Exactly. But no, it's great advice. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing those thoughts, Jeff. Thanks, Ashley, for taking over. We had a minor malfunction with an electric cat water fountain. So
I don't even know where to go with that.
Well, it's all good now. But yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope everyone enjoyed getting some of these insights for Jeff as we're kicking off round 1 of the season. But what you really came for, what we're going to be getting into next is, even though it's hard for Jeff, we're going to be talking about the players who we're targeting on Monday getting into this weekend's games. Okay. Yeah, no, we've got this water fountain, and it just kind of has the water just keeps going, so it's not just stagnant. And the cats are fantastic with it. But my wife was just like, Reid, get up here. It's just like, the water is just going everywhere, and I'm afraid the cats are going to get electrocuted. And I was like, what?
I mean, fair.
And this was after, like, last week she was using the hose at the sink, and like it had come unscrewed apparently, and it like popped off, and the water was just in her face as well. So she's just had some rough times with the water devices.
Mama Roo.
I know, it's
I just had to replace 2 sinks in our house because they both were leaking on the same day.
Oof.
Like, so fun times.
Yeah, right.
Let's get the social out here. And sorry, but it looked like the screens were a little off with, so I was trying to fool with it while we were talking. But if that's kind of weird on the stream, I apologize.
I didn't notice.
All right.
Thank you for noticing.
All right. Social has gone out. Again, if you're listening, please do go on and like and share those. Helps us so much. And we will jump right into our segment preview. All right, welcome back. We're here to talk about player targets going into round one. First, as I did with the last segment, quick opening announcement. Have seen lots of reports from people who are talking about the fantasy app not working, not being able to set their teams, some not even aware that the season has started. It has, for that one. But I've been talking with Skylar. He has still some inside connections of what's going on, and MLS is aware, and they are working on getting it fixed before the game starts. So, with hope, fingers crossed, everything will be ready to use the app before teams lock this weekend. But if all else fails, you can, through a desktop, maybe an iPad. I don't know how that works with you, Ashley, but through the desktop at least, or at least through desktop view, you can go in and get access to the
I mean,
fantasy
you can
game.
do it through your browser. I was doing it on my phone, or messing with stuff earlier today. It's just through Chrome, right?
Not as handy.
So you can do it mobilely, just not with the mobile app.
So there are some ways, but
fantasy
as is, yes. But they are aware and they are working on a fix. So with hope that'll come out soon. Just a quick little schedule takeaways that you need to know going into this round. The games start on Saturday, February 22nd at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is Miami versus New York City FC. As far as your auto-route planning should go around that early start game, this is the usual Apple TV lineup that we have right here, folks. 2:30 opener, then we got a whole bunch of games just through all the time slots. The 7:30 games and the 10:30 games are going to be the easiest to, well, of course, the 2:30 games as well. But anything 7:30 or earlier paired with your 10:30 games is going to be very easy to get your Aroos going. Once you get to those 8:30s and 9:30s, it's going to be much harder if you're trying to do something on Saturday. We've got 2 games on Sunday, so that's going to make those Aroos very easy. So this is a great round where you can figure that out. And I've got a video posted over at the MLS Fantasy Boss YouTube account where you can go over and see how to keep Aroo, auto-roo, and switcheroo using round one, this round, as the preview. So head that over. If you are new, check that out. It's a great tool, way to preview your points before you lock it in. Other important takeaways, the home teams this is CONCACAF Champions Cup. So we've got games going on Wednesday and Thursday, and Friday too, I think, maybe with Vancouver. But we've got games going on before Saturday when everything starts. So Sporting Kansas City and Colorado are playing at home. Miami and LAFC are playing away in the United States, in North America. But then we have RSL, Seattle, Cincinnati, and Vancouver who are traveling for their away games outside of the continent. So various levels of tired or expectations or worry with those CCC games right there. So just have that heads up for those teams. As far as injuries go, head on over to the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord. We're skipping through that as part of our new format with MLSFI. So head over to the Discord, check out the mega reference. As that gets populated, we don't have anything official right now, some rumors. But as that gets populated, you can check out those right there, as well as other notable absences, set piece takers, guaranteed scrubs, things like that. It's going to get populated throughout the year. It is a community project, so if you have information, hit up Ranchinator and we'll get that taken care of. Okay, let's start talking the picks now. Let's start with our keepers and defenders. Jeff, who are you looking at?
So for keeper, I feel like it's swirled around. The calendar might not be 100% for Miami.
Day to day.
Day to day. So I mean, if he isn't ready to go, like the bench spot is auto filled by, I think it's Ustari is their backup. He's a 4-0 keeper, perfect to throw on your bench. He could get you a point. He could get you 0 points. He could go -5. It doesn't matter because you can't go below 4. So a 4-0 keeper is ideal, especially in the early game week. So I've got Ustari if he's starting. Otherwise, I personally am not going to worry about going with trying to do a keeperoo this week just for budget purposes. I figure I'll try to just keep an eye on lineups and see if there's any really cheap keepers. If so, they're likely going to get the spot for me. The ones that came to mind was either Maurer or Tarbell for Houston. It's unknown who's going to start because from what I could tell in the very brief research I did today, they have been splitting time. Tarbell is actually starting, but Maurer has been getting in for at least half the game. Crepo is currently dealing with a knock, sounds like, for Portland. So Pantomis might be solid. He's 5-5, but you would have
Yep.
to wait until the Sunday game to see if that's the case. And if it doesn't work out, you know, on budget to upgrade, that could bite you. And then the other one is Daniel. I think San Jose's got a really nice match this week.
Ashley.
Defenders? Do you want to do defenders?
Oh, sorry.
Are we doing keepers and defenders?
Yeah, just do both. Lump
Yeah.
it together.
All right. Defender, not knowing if Evander's going to be like starting and all of a sudden playing 90 for Cincy.
Yeah.
I like Orgiano. I know he's really expensive, but he's likely going to be the guy that ends up playing high if that's the case. So he's pricey for a defender, but there's that ever-present chance of a clean sheet to add the points, but he should rack up a bunch of bonus points and basically act as another mid. So I've got Orshano, and then outside of him, my policy is like dirt cheap. Whoever is cheap and wants to find a spot on a team, like if you're 4-0, 4-5, 5, welcome to the squad.
You're in.
And it's just all going to depend. I'm not even necessarily caring if they're home or away this week. I'm just looking for cheap guys. There's always the chance of a clean sheet, assist, a goal, whatever. So the ones that come to mind for me is Atlanta has a great match. The two that I've been kind of looking at is like Luis Abram and I think Ronald Hernandez is healthy to play. He's 5'8". Efrain Morales may play. He's 5. And then the backup on the wings because Amador's injured and Lennon's injured. Matthew Edwards is 4-0. Never heard of him before, but 4-0 shout in one of the early games on a team that should have a great game. So I've got those. I've got Bartlow and Awadesu. I think that's how you say his name for Houston. Yeah. Awadesu's a 4-0. Yes. Good call. He did. And then Bartlow for Houston. I think I'm trying to remember what the other guy's name is. There was another 4-0 that's been getting some time. Exxon Arzu. He's been getting some time in preseason. Exactly.
For Houston?
For Houston.
ARZU.
Wow, okay.
He's been getting
have some injuries to.
He's been getting some play time in preseason,
Yeah.
and it's hard to tell if he's going to actually find his way in the starting lineup or they're just getting run time for newer people to see who they want on the roster. Hadebe for Cincy, he's 4-8 if he starts. They're at home. And then Hector Martinez, again, if he starts, he's 4-5 for Miami.
Yep. And that's the first game, which is a great throw on your bench and just let him price rise and scrub him in if you have to, right?
If he clean sheets, you give him a spot.
Yeah. I hate starting the year like this. We had a off camera tisk, Jeff and I, because I, as one would, have many of those cheap players as well. For me, defense these first few weeks is all about price risers and a lot of lineup looking. I get really mad when my husband schedules things these first couple weekends because I need to look at every roster, which I don't always have time to do.
Hashtag priorities.
I mean, right? I agree. Everything that I've been looking at, projected lineups from MLS preseason and stuff, Oriana looks. What I'm seeing is even with Evander, he's going to play up top. And I love a player out of position. I love it. So I think I can round out a better team without him, but I think I gotta take him this week. Do you know what I mean? Because I agree with you, Jeff, that's a hefty price.
Defender going forward is just
it's
the unicorn you got to look for.
Yes, originally, defensively, I was gonna build around Nuhu with price risers. I don't love that the Sounders are traveling midweek to Mexico. They generally do well in home openers, but don't always keep a shutout. They do have a pretty long statistic of keeping, winning games, which is why I'm kind of home openers, which is why I'm focusing more offensively, but we'll get to that. For keepers, I am also I'm backtracking in this structure. For keepers, I'm also hoping on Ustari. I think we all need to have a backup plan since calendar is day to day with what is the option. I don't want to go Drake calendar. I don't think so. What are my cheap options? That's the first place I'm likely to scrub out and just have a keeper that isn't going to play. And then, like you said, pick someone that's 5-5 or 6. I might even, just kind of get lazy and throw Fry or Daniel in, so I don't have to think about it until the end of the day. Or like you said, Pantomis as well. I get nervous sticking to a separate day that only has 2 games, but I think that's a great shout. And then like I said, for defenders, I'm gonna echo a lot of what Jeff said, where I'm just throwing in the cheapest that cheap can get. I had seen that Rodriguez might not be healthy for San Jose, and so Mooney is a 5.3 defender who is projected to possibly play in that position. Because like you said with Daniel, I do like San Jose in that game against RSL, especially with RSL having traveled and just generally having lost a lot of attacking power in this offseason. So I like that San Jose defense. I like Atlanta. I also like LAFC. I don't know if that's one that might come up for us. I know, that they're playing in CCC as well, but they're playing with domestically. I think they travel to Colorado, I think it is. So it's altitude, but still that's not a ton of travel, especially for a squad like that. So I'm definitely going to watch those lineups, those midweek lineups for LAFC to decide if that's still a defense that I'm interested in.
Not really much for me to add with this one. I think, I know I've seen people talk about not doing a keeperoo this round, and I absolutely agree that if we get a 4.0 keeper starting, do the keeperoo. 100% do the keeperoo if that's going to happen. It's just going to pay off. There's no reason not to. You'd have a 4.0 scrub on your bench anyway. It's there. Nothing really to add right there. Yeah, Atlanta's one that I was kind of sleeping on, so glad to hear about that.
Mhm.
I was concerned about the Seattle travel as well because I was looking at Fry initially, but Schulte is one that I would consider. Houston's people I'm considering, all that kind of stuff. So you guys have covered some of the good information right there. As far as the defenders go, I'm in the same boat. I had a little bit more expensive back line, but I'm definitely going to be looking for ways to cut. Again, I was looking for pairing up with Columbus. I was looking at the Houston option right there. I dabbled with looking at some of the LA Galaxy options, which was the strange thing last year was they were never like a defensive powerhouse, but yet Yoshida was like the 3rd top scoring defender in the league. So going up against San Diego was something I wanted to consider with them being.
I feel like I read some stat today though that was like an expansion team has never not scored on their opener or something weird. No, I'm not.
I have no idea.
There were details to it, but it was something very specific like that. That was like that made me think, oh, I don't want LA defense then, anyways. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's not in my final. These are just the people the thought process I was going through with all that. But yes, I've settled on wanting to have Hector Martinez, Matthew Edwards as well in my lineup, just because those budget players who we have strong feelings, has already been mentioned, playing so crucial to that early point value rises.
NYCFC is also likely going to be in rough shape.
Yeah.
From last I could tell, they've got 3 defenders that are all day to day. I think it's O'Toole.
Yeah.
Who was it? It's O'Toole, Tavon Gray, and then Thiago Martins.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got
their best defenders.
And you've got Santi Rod gone. As far as I know, he's already international, right? So you've got a team that's kind of looking for a new identity.
Mm-hmm.
You lost
new
your
coach.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird things, and there's some other teams that I've like dabbled with thinking about, but otherwise I just don't end up with like not big on Toronto at all. But DC's defense has not been something I've relied upon, so that was one that I
have a new Korean keeper though.
They've got new stuff. That's right. We'll figure out, but unknowns at this point. Philadelphia's
they're playing down a DP this year.
They are.
Keep that in mind too.
They are. Philadelphia's doing a bit of a rebuild, so there's Orlando potential options. I've seen some people, which I don't disagree with. Sporting Kansas City has not looked good in preseason, and so
Ooh.
there are potentially some Austin options if you want to look at some
Yeah.
options there. The Houston one is one that I'm wondering about because I think there's some questions with Dallas. They've got some new offensive spark to them, especially with Acosta coming in there. So I think that's a bit of the wild card with what could happen in that game, and the one thing that's really having me hesitant for maintaining some of the Houston players here as well. But a lot of good options right here. Definitely keep up with the Discord, keep up with the chat to see how the teams evolve. But looking at the budget options early on is never something that you can go wrong with when value is so important to the early part of this game. Let's move on to midfielders. Ashley, who are you looking at?
Guys, I'm so excited Miguel Almiron is back. I loved watching him when he was doing well with Newcastle. I'm not an Atlanta fan, but I do like Atlanta. And now, half of the Sounders front office has gone there, so I guess I know more about them than I should. But I just loved watching him in the Prem. I think it's such a great homecoming. And he is breaking my rule, which is new players never make my first week starting 11, but he's not new.
Is he really new?
He's an old player, and we know him. And
Well, I think his first week back when Atlanta was an expansion, he almost dropped 20.
Exactly. So to me, I think he's gonna fit right back in. Atlanta is a team that was hard to pick from, fantasy point wise. Yakimakis is gone. They have the new double L striker in there who's both names I can't pronounce, so it's double L for me. But I love Miggy this week. I love home Atlanta. I like this for him. I think this will be, for lack of a better term, a homecoming for him. And he has always produced well when he's been in MLS. And I think his time away will probably have made him a little bit better even. So no pressure on Miguel Almiron, but he made it into my team right away. The other player that I picked up, and I need to preface this by saying all of last season and most seasons, I'm borderline anti-Sounders with my fantasy picks. It took me weeks and weeks and weeks to vocally back that defense last year. That was in fantasy the best defense in MLS. I have loved me some Pedro de la Vega in this offseason, in this preseason. There was a lot of hype going into last year, and he came in hurt, and he just was not the 10, the creator that we were marketed that he would be because of those injuries and the time it took him to get into the squad after that. But in preseason, he seems to really be that. And so I know they're traveling, and maybe I'm just letting, the fandom get to my head, but I threw Pedro de la Vega in my team pretty quickly because of how Sounders tend to be in home openers, because of what I've seen from too many Spanish afternoon games that they played in preseason. That might be the first one that I walk back because of the price. But he was one that immediately, even considering the midweek travel, I thought that I might want for a home opener against Charlotte, who is a formidable opponent, definitely. That defense can be pretty decent. They're not playing midweek. Wolf Zaha's in that team now, but still, I just have a weird little spidey sense about him. I also am leaning towards Ojeda for Orlando. This is gonna sound like the lamest kind of front reason, but I watched their game against Miami and thought, damn, he looks really good. He is kind of in a new position, and he doesn't rely on the striker, and he is, from my observation, would be picking up lots of points if this game actually counted. And like you said earlier, Reid, I feel like Philly is in very much kind of a rebuilding phase. They lost Jack Elliott. I don't really know what that defense is going to look like. Jim Curtin's gone. I don't know what that's going to do. And so I'm wanting to kind of pick on teams who do play midweek, and this doesn't follow that rule, but I liked Ojeda. He's a decent price at 7.5. I feel like you can go a lot higher, but I've tried to stick middle with my midfielders for pricing. The other midfielder that I threw in pretty quickly was Lopez for San Jose. He was sneaky sneaks last season and a little hit or miss, but with the front line no offense to Jeremy Abobasi, God love him, but with the front options that San Jose picked up, and now you've got the Bruce Arena ball coming into San Jose, I like Heron Lopez a lot. And I am going to pick on RSL here pretty badly. So that was kind of what led that decision for me. And after that, I'm just looking at, again, kind of some, I don't want to say cheap options, but I'd like to use a midfield as a bench play. And currently that bench play is David Martinez, who I'm seeing projected to start in a couple different places, even on MLS. Sees the MLS website season preview, they project him to start up front in that right wing spot. I don't know. I haven't caught their preseason, and I think a lot depends on the Colorado game midweek. But if you're going to give me a 6.0 midfielder who plays in an advanced role for LAFC, I'm going to pick that up a lot. Especially if they're playing against Minnesota. Hopefully Christian's not listening, but that's a team I feel like could get targeted pretty consistently in the early part of this season. So, I'm like I said, I'm not quite as confident in him with the midweek game, but that was a welcome sight to see him in a lot of projected lineups today, and then have that low price point.
Jeff.
Nice. See, that's the level of research. That's something I haven't even looked at. So
It's
again,
Monday, Jeff. You don't need to do that normally.
I haven't even begun to look who's playing midweek in any other competition. So that'll be something to pay attention to. Good shout. So the mids that I have, I don't feel great about it. I've got Mukhtar at the moment. He's right at that $8 price point.
Yeah.
New England is kind of all over the place. They were towards the bottom of the barrel last year, if not last in the East, I think.
I think so.
I think they've got some new defenders. You've got a bunch of new players on their team, and it usually takes at least a couple weeks for everybody to feel like they're in rhythm. I think Mukhtar just gets it done, even without goals or assists last year. The last like 5-6 weeks of the season, he was on fire. Beginning of the season though, terrible. I also have Hernan Lopez, having Chicho Arango and J-Mart up top. I mean, two people that know how to finish.
Well,
if
he's
they can
playing
get a
as a
ball.
10, right? Espinoza plays out wide, and Lopez has been more of the 10 provider, which I like for him.
Well, I thought I heard that their SB is going to be like that right wing back spot.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if they're going to go with Chicho and Joseph Martinez at top together, or if one replaces the other. But I mean, point is, you've got two wonderful strikers that know how to finish if they get a ball played. So I think Lopez has high assist potential, if not also goal potential. So I'm with you there. Miggy was the first pick of the week for me. Miguel Almiron's going to be fantastic for Atlanta. I honestly, Montreal also was not great last year. They got to come down out of Canada and fly down to the southeastern part of the states. Homecoming for Almiron, I think he's going to have a great game. You've got, is it Reid, do you know, is it Latte Lath? Is that how you say his name?
I think it's Latte Lath, but I just like the LL.
Double L.
L.
Even if he only gets 60, if you've got him as a striker, high assist potential, and then you've got Moranchuk and Saba outside, I think Atlanta's offense is going to cook early this season. Hopefully their defense holds up. I've got Shampost just for the fact that he's 7, like it's on the cheaper side for a mid. Don't know if he's going to be playing the 10 or where he sits in the on the field, but down the stretch, once he got his fitness up, he was electric last year. Had a lot of bonus points rolling in, and then the assists started to come in when he was on more sets. So I like Shampost. Don't know what I'm doing with a 5th mid. I have a Zuni at the moment for Austin. Really haven't watched him play much. I just like their matchup. Really like their matchup being home against SKC. You've got him and Brandon Vasquez now up top for the attack for Austin. So
how much is he?
He's 8'3",
okay,
which is pretty high for a new guy.
I see, But he's
And then
attacking. He's like an attacking winger positionally.
Uzuni, I think he's the 10.
Yeah. Is he? Does
I
he
think
float
he's
middle?
supposed to. I think he's supposed to play like the 10.
Okay.
And then you'll notice that I do not have Evander or Lucho, and part of the reasoning is I don't know how much fitness they were doing with their prior teams before they moved. And I don't know if they're going to go 90. And if I'm going to pay $8.5 or $9 for a mid this week, I'm looking for someone that's going to likely play the whole game for some value. David Martinez, you already talked about, was another one. I just also don't see him going beyond like 60 minutes, 60, 65.
That's 2 points.
That is. However, if he I mean, LAFC should also have a great game. So, I mean, you could rack up a high score pretty quick. So that's where I'm at on mids.
Yeah, I like that. So I'll start off with the Lucho and Evander comment that you make. I have the same reservations about them, and they are both also not in my team. Lucho did train away from the team. He might have had a little bit of time with the team, but he did most of his training not with the full team after reporting late to camp. I'm not sure if Evander's been on the field yet or anything that he's done. So I would feel that Lucho is more fit than Evander at this point. He did have some injuries that just kind of hung around with him at the end of last year. But I would think that Lucho is likely the more fit of the two, but I am still concerned about both of them. Now, Evander may see the field with Cincy having that away game with CCC. And so that could be that maybe he doesn't play that or gets some early limited minutes in that game and then starts to get worked in. Who knows? But that's for, as you were saying, Jeff, for $8 million, I'm wanting a breakout. I'm wanting the Evander from last year, those points. That's what I'm wanting for that price
MVP runner-up, if you're part of our conversations last year.
Exactly.
Could have been MVP, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And so you guys have touched on, I think, a lot of the big ones there. I'm also looking at Fagundes because I think it's important to point out that LA Galaxy missing two big players right there. Pooch and Paintsel.
Three big players. Pooch, Paintsel, Joveljic, Gonzo.
I'm talking about the injuries. Sorry.
I know, but they're still missing.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
Joveljic is gone, but Pooch and Paintsel are injured. And so they won't be playing there. You still have Peck up top, but Fagundes slipped into that number 10 role last year and did well with it. Similar to that point that you had Jeff, about Chambost, 500-ish minutes last year, 5 assists during that time, so some good production for that time. Fagundes did well going up against San Diego. I think there's some good points right there potentially with him. But otherwise, you guys have covered a lot. He is 7.5, so not too bad. Again, just kind of going down through
prices, Lopez and De La Vega, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, those are some other players you could look at. The Nashville call was interesting because my note with New England is they've got like 9 new starters. Like that is like a new team. So they've been playing, but how long will that take to come in? And Mukhtar and Nashville were getting some of their spark back at the end of the season. So see if that was more of a blip. But yeah, New England's pretty much totally new. I think St. Louis is one that you can also think about for some players like Hartel. There, I think, is one that you could throw around. They've definitely got some options, but I know we got a couple of questions on Twitter about San Jose Earthquakes, of like who it is in that shuffle of who am I going to look at. I think you guys touched on that pretty well for those teams. But yeah, there's some good sides. I did see someone holler out Jordy Mihailovic over with Colorado. I think it's got to be St. Louis that I like. I know that they struggled last year with the defense after having a great defense in their first year, but Colorado with the midweek game, they've had some things changed up. I'm just not sure that I'm going to throw as much in with away teams in the midfield when there's I think several good options that you have for this round one on the home side.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'd go Hartel over Mihal just because.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know. There's always someone that we didn't shout out that someone thinks we should.
I think when you're in a 50-50 split, you got to start laning the home guy
Yeah.
too.
And also
Unless
the
that-
team that doesn't play twice in 72 hours. You know what I mean? Like
Correct.
We'll see.
I don't know.
We'll see. All right, good mix right there. We'll definitely see. I mean, this is going to be one where there'll be players that we probably never heard of who are stepping onto the field and doing crazy things. Like, this is what round one is. Trying to figure out where these diamonds in the rough are going to be in midfield is a key area we can start seeing some breakout stuff. So let's move on to forwards. I think a bit more straightforward. Let's start with you, Jeff.
I think it's pretty straightforward. I've got Messi. You know, assuming he plays and everything looks fine. I have Bawanga, and then I actually have a scrub spot up front. Just budget constraints. Really don't want to even play with any of the forwards that would be like 5 and under. I think there's a couple. I think there's one for Arsenal. Might get some time if rotation hits correct. I'm not bold enough to do it. I think Christian Ramirez is going to be better than Jovic for LA Galaxy this year. That's my hot take. I thought C-Ram looked phenomenal when he got time alongside Cucho and Rossi. I expect more of the same, having Peck and Royce to work with. It's a very similar set, and I would assume he's going to be the lone striker. He's going to be just like the plug and play for where Jovic was. So I'm not bold enough to wait on Ramirez because of where he's at price wise. I think he's 75.
Yep.
For whatever reason he's not available, don't have the extra point Peck, you're in trouble. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm on Messi, Bawanga, and a scrub. And if anything changes with like rotation or rosters don't look right, not really sure where I'm gonna punt, to be honest.
I think it's very strange. Just a quick thing here before you go, Ashley. Peck is 8.3.
Uh-huh.
That's a very strange starting price.
Jordan Morris is 7.3. Like there's
Those
a
are
couple.
those are also strange starting prices, which really make me wonder if there was an error with the calculations, and if all of a sudden there's going to be two more extra points added. But like that's a really weird starting point.
I would
error
make this.
Is they cut Skylar out of the equation, and so he's not here to double check anything.
I would make the assumption they rounded up on prices, so someone that they might see as 8.25 rounds to 8.3, because the big change this year is rather than having the 0.0 or 0.5 endings for players, now they can end in 0.3 or 0.8 as well. So you're already starting to get small wrinkles with budget.
Yeah, that's a great call. We should have highlighted that earlier, but yeah, it's a very strange. That is the one stealth change that didn't get announced is players won't end in 0s and 5s now. It's now going to be 0, 5s, 3s, and 8s.
Yeah.
Budget.
I like Messi. I love Messi.
Yeah.
All the time.
Sure.
I also have a long-standing love for Denis Bawanga. Can't not include him unless he's not starting. And then again, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I like Jordan Morris, and here's why. He had the best. Don't shake your head at me. He had the best. He had the best goal scoring season of his career as a 9, with Rui Diaz no longer filling that role. And Jesus Ferreira is going to play out wide. They're not having him play as like a 2-striker deal. It's Morris in the 9, Pedro de la Vega, Jesus Ferreira, and then Rusnak. And I just have like a weird excitement for some reason. And again, if you've ever listened to me on this podcast, I'm borderline. I wear a lot of jerseys, but I'm almost anti-Sounders because they just make me very nervous, and I tend to not back them in fantasy. So I don't know what's wrong with me. I put him in like too early. And the reason that I didn't go Peck is I'm worried about all of those missing parts. Now, do I think Gabriel Peck could probably still produce without his 3 partners in crime? Yeah, but if you take 3 of 4 pieces away and you plug in 3 random new. I don't know. I'm not quite as high on Christian Ramirez. I agree with what you'd said when he'd come in at Columbus. He did look very comfortable and confident, but I think I also don't like to touch expansion team first games. It's not a home opener for San Diego, I know, but I don't know. I there wasn't
I don't
another
know.
striker.
I don't know if I'm bold enough to grab Christian Ramirez.
Sure,
I just
exactly.
think I think as the season rolls, that's my hot take. I think he's going to
Yeah,
have
I
a
like
more
that.
productive year than Joveljic.
At SKC,
Yeah,
than Joveljic did last season.
Joveljic last year with the Galaxy.
I like that hot take. Okay. I think I don't know. I don't know what my thing is with Jordan Morris this week, but I think you could go Benteke. I don't hate that. But I never trust DC even when they're playing an equally bad defensive team. So I don't know. I haven't really leaned any other way. Reid, do you lean another way because you don't like Jordan Morris?
Well, I just think it's funny. Jordan Morris was one of the players on Eli's overvalued players over at
read
MLSFantasyboss.com. With
saw
his thoughts being for 0.2 more, you get someone like Jesus Ferreira, who's going to be much more involved and will likely have more points overall.
Who had the lowest productive
season
season of his career last year because he was hurt and he's playing out wide, not up top.
But is he hurt? So
Who are we talking about?
Jesus Ferreira
is playing out wide.
No, for me, Messi, Peck, and Benteke. So unlike what you were saying, Ashley, I do like the potential of Benteke eating up the Toronto team.
No,
because
Denis.
they are no Boanga, no Benteke, Benteke. And so I mean, I think I like that more than the LAFC Minnesota. Peck's in there as well. Yeah, all three. Yeah, all three. Wow. So I mean, there's the option. So Peck, that's part of the switcheroo and the auto roost things going on right here. So I mean, Peck and Fagundes, if they stay in my team, they're playing that Sunday game, and so I get the ability to look at the bench and see if I want to swap something with that. Yeah. So I mean, it would be great if they did well, and then I have the points off the bench and the points off the field to help with my value gains. But if someone does whiff, then they can be there. But if someone just go like if Hector Martinez and Matthew Edwards just go bonkers and get clean sheets and all this stuff, like, well, maybe I don't need Fagundes. Maybe don't overdo that. If David Martinez has a banger of a game, well, maybe we don't need to have all these people right here. So and just see what happens. So it can work. But I like that LA game against San Diego, and Messi, of course, got to like that. I mean, it's not going to be that cold in New York City with Hope. So otherwise, he already bailed on Sporting Kansas City. So we'll see what happens. Again, plug for the weather reports to know if Messi's going to play, depending on the temperature. Depending on the temperature. Well, we'll see if they bring the weather with them.
Wasn't BNR, I think earlier, said that there's already potential for the Miami game to get delayed.
It's black and red for those of you who don't know that.
The Sporting Kansas City one did, yeah. I mean, it snowed in Florida this year. We'll see what happens. But no, yeah, Messi, Peck, Benteke. I think this is a lineup, or I mean, you could look at some of the opposite San Jose. I mean, you could look at absolutely at Los Angeles and see what's going on there. A lot of great forwards were sold this year, so I think this pool is
a shout I want to make, even though I don't have him, is Chicho Arango loves playing against his former teams, and Chicho Arango's playing against RSL.
Yeah.
So if you come into that game and you've done well with scrubs and have some money, I like Chicho Arango this week.
Yeah. So I don't think the forward pool is as deep as the midfielder pool. But if you're going with the budget back, like Jeff was talking about, you could definitely find some money to splash here at the front and try to make it back on the back end. All right. It may not need much discussion, but let's wrap it up with captains.
Just on 3.
Sure.
NCM.
1, 2, 3. Messi. Yeah, I mean,
I love him.
It's going to be the theme again. It was a theme last year. It's going to be the theme again this season, that when Messi's playing, people are going to be captaining Messi. I mean, you start...
Especially Messi in Miami.
Messi in Miami with New York City FC missing some key pieces. So there's always the conversations, but what about Suarez? That's it. It's
Great
messy.
conversation. He
Is-
looked great in preseason for his
And-
age.
And it's always going to come down to Messi because that's what most people are going to be going with. There's the FOMO element to it. And even though this is the point of the season where you have the most opportunity to make up for a missed captain, it still hurts if you miss on some of those picks there. So unless you have a great differential feeling, we'll likely see Messi.
There's a question in the YouTube chat of who would your backup captain be if Messi for some reason is not available?
Yeah, if not Messi,
Suarez.
who?
No.
Okay.
I said
I
Suarez. Just to be
I
a dick.
personally would have it on Miguel Almiron.
Oh, I don't know if I'm ballsy enough to do that, but I
I've-
like that call, Jeff.
I've got a really strong feeling that
Yeah.
Montreal is going to get smoked, and it's going to be
Yeah, I do
whether it's a
too.
clean sheet. I think there's going to be 3, 4, 5 goals there for Atlanta.
Yeah, I like that shout a lot. I think my knee-jerk reaction would be to go Denis Bouanga with a home opener against Minnesota. I think it would depend for me what they do midweek because it's at altitude and stuff. But my knee-jerk reaction would be Denis. But I really like that Mickey shout. Reid?
Almiron would be my backup as well, who
Okay.
I would have right there. Though we've been called out saying we're too caught up on Almiron right now.
You're not caught up enough? Okay.
That's what it is. No, yeah, for me, if it wasn't Messi, Almiron would be the one I was looking at. I know a lot of people are going with Evander. A lot of people are going with some of those options. Again, I'm just not sure about the play time, about the fitness right there, and that is important right now. So,
in a
missed the
week, we'll talk about Evander a lot. But I agree with what Reid said. It didn't seem like he was participating at all, and maybe that's wrong. If he was playing on the side or working on fitness or whatever, that might be different. But it seems like he wasn't from what Portland was not saying, right?
Right.
I miss the times when captain picks were all over the place and it wasn't just Messi.
That's
Give us a year.
PM, pre-Messi. It's pre-Messi.
Yeah, give us another year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. So fun to be back into the swing of things, getting ready with the fantasy tips and the picks. Looking forward to breaking down round 1 next week. But let's wrap everything up with our plugs. Jeff.
Fantasy Boss Discord. Everybody should hang out during game times, talk smack, enjoy just relationship with others that enjoy the same thing, just watching soccer. Whether you're supporting your own team or you don't support a team, join in on the fun.
The Discord is special. Ashley.
I don't really have one. I'm just happy to be back. Actually, that's not true. My plug is MLS Fantasy for finally removing Facebook login as an option so that no one may need to suffer as those before have suffered.
I didn't even know they removed it as an option because I never even.
It's
used
gone.
It, so that's best.
I would like to thank myself for that. I think, if I'm
think you
being
should.
completely honest.
I think you very should.
Yeah.
For me, of course, yes. Jeff said it great. The Discord's fantastic. MLSFantasyBoss.com. We have a great new lineup of articles that are coming out. Wojo is helping us curate that, getting everything going. So keep checking back for the new articles that are coming out to MLSFantasyBoss.com, as well as the articles that you're used to, such as Tyler Zipper-Ranchel's article coming out later this week. But don't forget, check out the Patreon, patreon.MLSFI. If you want to find out how you can support this show, be involved, and the chance to be in the Pro Rel League, we'll have more information about the standings of that over at MLSFantasyBoss.com as well this year. So it's so much fun. Great to be back. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And for the first time before a round, good luck.
Take care.
Recording stop.